I had just attended the world's largest technology summit when my mentor, whom I regarded as a father, called me. He had arranged a marriage for me with his good friend's son, Charles. He was a young talent in the capital, and several of my patents had been licensed to his company, currently serving as the core technology for their new products. I worked overtime to handle my laboratory tasks, dressed up meticulously, and went to the engagement ceremony. However, I was stopped at the entrance of the hall by Charles's secretary, Lena. She was dressed in a gorgeous gown, looking more like the bride than I did. "If you're smart, get out of here quickly. A country orphan like you doesn't even check if you're worthy of our Charles." I retorted, "Does Charles know you're making decisions on your own like this?" Lena sneered contemptuously. "A vase who can only marry herself off by relying on her mentor's name, how could you understand my weight in the president's heart?" As she spoke, her face surprisingly flushed a bit. I glanced at her twice and called Charles. "If your courtesy means blocking your fiancée at the door upon her arrival, then my patents could also just let you look at the contracts before selling them to your rival company, alright? I am an orphan. Completing my studies and entering the top research institute in the country all depended on my mentor's cultivation. He gave me a lot of care, just like a father. Therefore, for the engagement partner he chose for me, I was willing to give more patience. If Charles could handle this matter properly and give me the due explanation, I would be willing to continue giving him a chance. "Selena? What's the matter?" The other end of the phone was lively, as if guests were talking beside him. He first responded to the guests before indifferently putting the phone to his ear, as if he hadn't heard me earlier. "Come pick me up to enter the venue, your secretary." Before I could finish, he'd sked impatiently and said, "Do you have princess syndrome? Can't your feet touch the ground? I still have to entertain guests, where do I have the time to pick you up? Roll in yourself." The phone emitted beeping tones. Lena covered her mouth and laughed out loud, her eyes filled with undisguised sarcasm. "I'm following Charles's instructions. If you want to go in, just roll in, that way, I definitely won't stop you. I can calmly complete even the most difficult experiments." But communicating with such unreasonable people, I only felt a throbbing at my temples. "Secretary Lena, do you think your position as secretary is very secure? Embarrassing the president's fiancée at the hall entrance, is that part of your career plan? What a pity, compared to a professional elite like me, the president hates useless vases like you even more." I looked up coldly. Professional elite? An elite with dark thoughts toward her own president? Does Charles know that his secretary drools over him every day like a dog licking? Lena suddenly became furious with shame. She raised her hand and swung it fiercely at me. I stepped back 2 paces to dodge. Resorting to violence when your defenses are broken? So, when negotiations with business partners fail, do you also slap them like this? Truly an elite. Hold her down for me. Having her thoughts exposed by me, Lena's shrill voice cracked a bit. She gasped for breath, staring fixedly at me, her fingertip pointing at me trembling slightly. The nearby security guards, who had been watching the show, walked toward me upon hearing her words. "If Lena is being stupid, are you the same? Do you know that the target of your violence is Charles's fiancée?" I advised them to remain rational. The security guards exchanged glances, and the leader spoke seemingly apologetically, but his eyes carried mockery. "Miss Selena, we're just following orders, please forgive us. Secretary Lena is a big shot by the president's side, while you're just a marriage machine without any background. If your dead parents suddenly came back to life and had some overwhelming background, then we would definitely apologize to you." For the engagement ceremony, I was wearing a fitted gown and high heels. After dodging a couple of times, I was soon grabbed by the arms by 2 security guards and forced to half-kneel in front of Lena. She looked at my face gloomily, then suddenly grinned. She raised her hand, adorned with manicured nails, to slap me. I abruptly closed my eyes. "Stop." A deep voice carried anger, and Lena's hand halted in midair. Charles walked toward me. His posture was tall and straight, his face handsome, even more striking than in photos. He disdainfully scanned me from head to toe, his gaze pausing on my face. Today is our engagement banquet, what embarrassing thing are you doing? I broke free from the security guard's hands, stood up, and sneered. Can't you see this situation clearly? Charles, I want to ask you, is it your courtesy that your security guards are using violence against me at the hall entrance? Do you know what your secretary just? Before I could finish, Charles interrupted with a frown. Enough. You're late for the engagement ceremony and instead of coming in, you're acting crazy at the door. If my security doesn't hold you down, should they wait for you to run in and bite the guests? My time is very valuable, and you've wasted it like this. An orphan like you has no value and is stupid. I really don't know why Dad wants me to get engaged to you. The guests who followed out to watch glanced at me subtly, whispering among themselves. These condescending gazes made me look like a clown. I also felt my time was wasted. I had spent so much time dressing up and even took special leave. With this time, I could have updated a round of data for my new experiment. What a coincidence, I also feel my time was wasted. Since we both looked down on each other, why not just call off the engagement? Charles was stunned, his eyes narrowing slightly. Are you threatening me? Acting crazy in front of me isn't enough, now you're making a fuss with calling off the engagement? Do you think this will threaten me? Looking at Charles's expression, I suddenly felt speechless, a sense of helplessness as if I couldn't speak human words. Beside him, Lena leaned weakly and bonelessly against Charles. Charles, if she's making such a scene at the engagement ceremony, won't she be climbing onto the roof and removing tiles after marriage? Moreover, earlier she saw me as your secretary, thought I had some looks, and got furious wanting to hit me. If not for those security guards protecting me, she would have succeeded. Charles looked at me incredulously. Lena has been my secretary for 2 years, handling so many things for me. Do you think she's a vase like you? What do you have to be jealous of? I tugged at the corner of my lips, but there was no trace of smile in my eyes. Although I'm curious why you think I'm a vase. But do you just believe your secretary's words like that? It was your secretary. Charles interrupted me again. If I don't believe my secretary, should I believe a madwoman like you? Lena raised her hand to cover her upturned lips, blinked, and tears appeared in her eyes. Charles, I really feel sorry for you. You're already a commanding figure in the capital, yet you still have to be constrained by your dad to marry a madwoman. Charles had just taken over the Fu Corporation for 2 years, and Victor was still interfering in its affairs. He had accumulated a lot of anger due to his father's meddling. After Lena said this, the atmosphere around him suddenly sank. Selena, you'd better apologize and compensate me properly. Otherwise, even my dad can't save you. I finally understood, Lena was less a capable assistant and more a lackey. She knew exactly how to speak to get into Charles's heart. The perception that I was a vase couldn't be without her whispering in Charles's ear. Charles was used to being flattered, going along with him made it easier to solve problems. I glanced at him, feeling only helplessness. What compensation do you want? He snorted coldly. I want you to personally call my dad and say that everything is because you want to call off the engagement yourself. I nodded decisively. Okay. With that, I took out my phone and opened the contacts. Charles looked at me in surprise, pursing his lips. Think clearly, once this call is made, the Fu Corporation's wealth and glory will have nothing to do with you. I didn't respond to him and directly found Victor's contact and dialed. Not only that, I want her to kneel and apologize to me in front of everyone. Lena's aggrieved and affected voice interjected. Charles, I've worked for you so long, relying on my abilities. Being bullied and insulted by her like that earlier, I really can't stand it. If she doesn't apologize to me, I absolutely won't forgive her. I was truly amused with anger. The security guards were still standing there, who was bullying whom? Lena, casually inverting black and white, do you think everyone is a fool? You ordered the security to restrain me and wanted to hit me. Now you're saying I bullied you? Charles stood in front of Lena. It must be you who hurt Secretary Lena first, she was just trying to protect herself. If you still have the basic sense of shame as a person, apologize to Secretary Lena. Otherwise, I'll use means to force you to apologize. He glanced around, and the security received the order, eyeing me menacingly. Selena certainly has a sense of shame. I think you and your secretary have lost all face. A noble voice came from behind Charles. It was Adrian, the president of the Loop Corporation, walking over with a smiling face, his fox-like eyes shining with a tear mole beneath. The Loop Corporation was the rival of the Food Corporation, with many overlapping businesses. Adrian had taken over the family business early, developing the company well, and had a sense of kings not meeting kings with Charles. However, due to my patented technology, the Food Corporation's recent product iterations vaguely pressured the Loop Corporation. Charles was surprised that Adrian came to the engagement banquet this time. Adrian is really free, not only attending a rival's engagement banquet but also coming to meddle in my private affairs? Charles said displeasedly. I was also somewhat surprised looking at Adrian's back protecting me in front. We had discussed cooperation before, and our interactions were pleasant. I just didn't expect that halfway through, he would try to seduce me, scaring me into fleeing back to the lab overnight. This patent was also because my mentor and Victor were old friends, so I sold it to the Food Corporation. I didn't expect him to be willing to step forward and help me. Selena? How's the engagement going? Are you satisfied with the venue? Victor's chuckling voice came from the phone. I'm calling to tell you about dissolving the engagement. Charles's secretary blocked me from entering the venue and even had security use violence against me. Charles came out without distinguishing right from wrong, and even wanted me to kneel and apologize to Secretary Lena. Your Fu family's threshold is too high, I won't enter. The other end was silent for a moment. What? This little brat only knows how to cause trouble for me. Wait for me to come and deal with him. Victor muttered, followed by the sound of a car starting. Victor, don't listen to this bitch's words, you've been deceived by this pauper. Lena suddenly snatched my phone, pouting aggrievedly. I went to the entrance to pick up Miss Selena properly, but she didn't go in and caused trouble there. I've labored for the Food Corporation for so many years, can't I even get an apology? Victor's voice was gloomy. Secretary Lena, right? You're fired, go to HR to resign yourself. Lena's face stiffened. What are you meddling in my son's marriage for? Do you think those lies can fool me? Unexpectedly, Victor chose to believe me. Lena's face twitched, her hand gripping the phone tightened. She squeezed out tears, looking tearfully at Charles. Victor, if you don't feel sorry for your own son, can't I do it? Just to win over a professor, you're making Charles get engaged to an orphan pauper. Are you treating Charles as a marriage tool? The other end was silent again. After a long while, Victor sighed, his voice suddenly sounding aged. Charles, do you think the same? Does he think it's Dad's fault? So he did these things, unwilling to get engaged to Selena? Charles looked at me, then withdrew his gaze. As long as Selena is willing to properly apologize to my secretary, I'll still be willing to continue the engagement with her. The manicure scratched a screeching sound on the phone case. I looked over and saw Lena's face somewhat distorted. This? Selena, what do you think? The other end seemed expectant. Expectant of what? Expecting me to apologize to Lena? The previous patent collaborations were all discussed with Victor, and I thought he was a fair person. I trusted his family education, so when my mentor said my engagement partner was Charles, I was willing to come with expectations. However, businessmen are ultimately businessmen. To achieve their goals, even knowing the truth, they would still wrong me once. I was curious, did he think I must have Charles? I suddenly found it somewhat amusing. I raised my hand and gently poked the waist of the person in front of me. Adrian shuddered. He was angry because of Victor's words and was about to say something sarcastic, but I interrupted him. He softened his expression, looked at me, pursed his lips, lowered his head, and made a listening gesture toward me. Adrian, I'm preparing to change to another marriage partner. Do you want to recommend yourself? Adrian suddenly widened his eyes. He parted his lips and moved them, his eye corners suddenly a bit wet and red. It would be my honor. Selena. What are you saying? The marriage between you and my son was discussed between me and Professor William. Isn't it bad for you to suddenly back out now? You were raised with Professor William's sponsorship, and later became his student. He's almost like half a father to you. Have you thought about how to explain to him? After a brief surprise, Victor quickly composed himself and spoke to me persuasively, with some coercive pressure. He mentioned my mentor, which displeased me. You seem to have forgotten, I called you precisely to call off the engagement. I stated my original purpose. If my teacher knows I called off the engagement to escape a pit of misery, he would only be happy for me. My mentor hopes my marriage partner is an excellent person with good character, but that obviously doesn't include your son, Mr. Victor. Looking at my phone in Lena's hand, my eyes were filled with uncontrollable sarcasm. The surrounding guests' gazes were too scorching. Charles's entire face flushed red. He looked at me as if his defenses were broken. Selena. Don't go too far. Clearly, you're the one who did wrong. What right do you have to point fingers at me? Do you think calling off the engagement will end today's matter? Feeling embarrassed, his eyes carried anger, his tone heavily pressing toward me. Do you think I'll let you go after calling off the engagement? Shut up. Shut up. Two voices rang out simultaneously. On the phone, Victor hadn't had time to continue scolding his son. The person beside me had already adjusted his sleeves and walked over. Charles, who do you want to teach a lesson? Threatening my girlfriend in front of me, is it because you think my Lou Corporation is just for show? Adrian raised his hand and took my phone from Lena's hand. Then he leisurely returned to my side. Adrian, you don't know, that Selena is just a parentless pauper, she's not worth your. Lena spoke unwillingly, then shut up under Adrian's cold gaze. Almost forgot about you. Secretary Lena, the grievances my girlfriend suffered today, Adrian will certainly repay double in the future. Please be prepared. Lena suddenly shivered. Hearing Adrian's threat, Charles sneered. Adrian, our two families have so many overlapping industries, now it's obvious that my food corporation is developing better. I'd like to see what ability you have to retaliate. Don't swell your face to look fat just to stand out. Adrian hooked his lips in a smile, indifferent to Charles's sarcasm. He held my hand, his eyes sparkling. Want to continue playing? Come home with me? I nodded gently. Adrian and I were about to leave hand in hand but were stopped by a car speeding over. Victor abruptly opened the door and anxiously extended his hand toward me. Wait. How rare, my father who didn't even come to my engagement, how did he suddenly come? Charles looked at the sudden Victor, smirking insincerely. What he got was Victor's furious glare. Lena stood in front of Charles, speaking aggrievedly. Victor, you don't know, that bitch actually called off the engagement in front of so many people and chose the rival Adrian. She's slapping our food corporation's face like this, you must teach her a good lesson. Slap. Lena covered her face and fell to the ground, her gown stained with dust. This slap was too heavy, so much so that she supported herself on the ground and couldn't get up for a long while. I've come personally, and you still dare to invert black and white there. Do you think I don't know your little schemes? Victor turned around and showed me a kind smile. Selena, today's matter is my son's fault, for my sake, give him another chance. This engagement ceremony has been prepared for so long, and the guests are all here. The ring is the imperial green that Food Corporation specially auctioned from an auction before, you'll definitely like it. Moreover, look, my son has some looks in this capital, right? Charles looked at his father acting like a pimp and felt it absurd. He gritted his teeth and spoke, somewhat breaking down. Dad. What on earth are you saying? If you want to win over Professor William, I have enough confidence to convince him. If not, doesn't Food Corporation have money? Why must you curry favor with her? Victor's voice was even louder. Because those patents are all hers. The core technologies of Food's latest products are all inventions by teacher Selena. You've been in charge for so long, haven't you even checked who owns the core technology patents? Charles stared at me blankly, his eyes finally showing belated panic. The assistant who got out of the car with Victor walked over at this moment. Chairman, the surveillance from the hall entrance has been retrieved. The huge screen originally for the engagement ceremony was moved out. After the assistant operated on the computer, everything that happened at the entrance earlier was projected. The secretary who was supposed to pick up the bride blocked the door like a guard dog. Inverting black and white, wantonly insulting. When furious with shame, she even ordered security to use violence. The high-definition footage on the screen revealed every detail, thoroughly displaying that face distorted by jealousy in front of everyone. Lena was still sitting on the ground covering her face, looking at the screen. She didn't dare stand up. Her eyes hid deep fear. She looked expectantly at Charles, hoping her president could save her life. But Charles just stared blankly at my face. Look, this is the secretary you trust most. Interrupting others' explanations, punishing without distinguishing right from wrong, is this how I taught you? Victor sighed in frustration at his failure, raised his hand to wipe his face. What are you still dazed for? Apologize now. Charles's face finally showed some shame. He pursed his lips, looked at me, and suddenly bowed deeply to me. Selena, I'm sorry. A slender hand wrapped around my waist and gently moved me aside, dodging Charles's apology. Adrian's mouth hooked in a smile, but his eyes carried chill. I'll prepare a better wedding and a better ring for Selena. He glanced at Victor. I have quite good looks in the capital too. As long as teacher Selena wants to choose, the people wanting her favor can line up to France. Instead of choosing this fool who sends lackeys to go crazy and bite people. Secretary Lena, who had remained silent since hearing that the Fook Corporation's patents belonged to me, now dared to be angry but not speak. She lowered her head, letting her hair cover her expression, silently reducing her presence. She has plenty of people who love her, plenty who want to cherish her. Charles, from the beginning, you despised her as an orphan without family background. But aren't you relying on the scraps from this orphan's fingers to barely suppress me? Old man Victor, we'll leave first today, we'll settle today's accounts with you later. The embrace with a faint agarwood scent enveloped me. Adrian's eyes were full of indignation at my earlier ordeal. He held my hand and walked toward his car. Selena. Victor's somewhat tired voice came over. Today it's all my son's fault. Uncle Victor apologizes to you. All this means he has no fate with you. Professor William and I have been good friends for many years. He has always treated you as his own daughter. Today, I also want to take you as my goddaughter. What do you think? Indeed, an old fox who has held power for many years. I sighed inwardly. At this moment, Victor's face was full of kindness, showing no trace of acting. If marriage can't retain my technology, then use familial means? I spoke indifferently. No, my boyfriend has a competitive relationship with the Fook Corporation. It's better for us to keep clear boundaries in the future. Victor's eyes carried anxiety. Oh, why so distant? Are you still angry at Secretary Lena? I'll fire this secretary right now. I guarantee that in the future, no company in the capital will hire her. Lena, who had been cowering all along, finally couldn't hold it. She crawled out screaming, one side of her face swollen high, tears and snot streaming. She lay on the ground hugging one of Victor's legs. Chairman. I know I was wrong. I really know I was wrong. Please spare me. Seeing Victor's firm attitude, she turned to grab Charles's pant leg. Charles. I've done so much for you, even without merit. There's hard work. Save me. Please save me. I'll die. I'll die. She had abused power under Charles's name for so long. Once dethroned, she dared not think what her outcome would be. Her body trembled, the fear in her eyes about to overflow. She looked up longingly, hoping for a trace of pity from Charles. But she only saw those indifferent eyes. Charles retreated indifferently. Lena, doing wrong should be punished. Lena seemed to lose all strength, her hands maintaining the grabbing motion falling to the ground. And her only lifeline now no longer looked at her, shifting his gaze straight to me. Teacher Selena, so you are so talented. Before, I was deceived by Lena, thinking you wanted to marry for wealth. I apologize to you. I will compensate you well, I hope you can give me another chance. Are you still willing to complete this engagement ceremony with me? Adrian tightly gripped my wrist, pursing his lips hard. Charles, this is the first time I've discovered you're so shameless. I think you should remember that Selena just became my girlfriend. Charles straightened his back, neither humble nor arrogant. Both are marriages of convenience. I think teacher Selena would definitely prefer a partner she knows well. Instead of randomly choosing one to vent anger, and regretting later. Teacher Selena, your technology has been operating quite well at Fu Corporation, hasn't it? He took out a ring from his suit pocket. The imperial green ring gleamed luxuriously in the sunlight. I'll definitely give you an explanation for today's farce, I hope you consider it carefully. Victor chuckled at me. Yes, this kid is stubborn, but once decided, he's very devoted. Moreover, your teacher and I have been old friends for so many years, we know each other's backgrounds. I sighed lightly. Why do people always take me for a fool? Charles, were you really not intentionally interrupting me several times earlier? Charles's somewhat complacent face stiffened. You think this orphan can't bring you benefits, so even knowing what your secretary did, you still interrupted my explanations to stand on the moral high ground and want to call off the engagement with me, right? Several times I wanted to explain what Lena did, but he interrupted aptly. How could I not understand his intentions? Could Victor, this old fox, raise a stupid dog? You not only wanted to call off the engagement with me but also to tarnish my reputation, even make me pay a price. Even because I'm causing trouble, you can take the opportunity to get more compensation from my teacher, right? I was just a tool, a stepping stone, thoroughly used by people. You just didn't expect those patents were all mine. Wanting to marry me again isn't because you truly saw my value? I didn't want to watch this troupe perform anymore. So I directly tore off his fig leaf. In the end, Lena was just a secretary. How much of what she did at the entrance was her own initiative? And how much was hinted by superiors? Charles's expressions from earlier included fury, sarcasm, and full apology. But now it was complete calm, just like his dad. I smiled lightly. Moreover, a leader who has been in power for 2 years and doesn't even know who owns the core technology patents, I don't dare trust. I still think my technology will be well cherished at the Liu family. Charles's expression stiffened, instantly somewhat ashamed and annoyed. Currently, most of the company is still under my dad's control, so He wanted to explain to me, but looking at my hand held with Adrian's, he resentfully shut up. The phone rang suddenly. I looked down and answered. Selena? Victor said you want to call off the engagement, what's going on? Did you suffer some grievance? The other end was noisy, gradually quieting with Professor William's footsteps. Professor William was currently abroad attending a summit, a sudden assignment. Before boarding the plane, he sighed saying he couldn't attend my wedding and asked me to take more photos for him. Now, receiving Victor's message, he immediately called me. Hearing only concern and no blame in his tone, I smiled lightly. Professor William, it's like this. Before I finished, I heard furious curses from the other side, with some dialect slang, the tone fast like a spinning top. He sighed, his voice somewhat hoarse, actually cursing himself to tears. Selena, it's teacher's fault, I knew that old fox Victor couldn't raise anything good. Call off the engagement if you want, it's Charles who's not worthy of you. The aftermath, wait for teacher to return and help you solve. The kind voice made a decisive conclusion. Unexpectedly, sending a message to his friend for help resulted in such a quick outcome. Victor spoke weakly. Professor William. Professor William sneered, the anger drifting straight from the speaker. Victor, you know I treat Selena as my own daughter, with our years of friendship, is this how you treat my daughter? My eyes heated up. I also, treated him as my dad. Some time ago, the teacher suddenly fell seriously ill and was hospitalized. Upon discharge, looking at the row of disease names on the discharge certificate, he suddenly sighed heavily. He realized he was already very old, perhaps with limited time left. But the only thing he couldn't let go of was me. Once I immerse myself in experiments, I can even forget to eat. He was really worried that after he was gone, no one would take care of me. So he was so eager to find me a partner. Selena. The voice that could lecture vigorously in a large hall now came weakly from the speaker. My throat choked with sourness, unable to make a sound. Selena, I still have a long time. We don't like this one, you can continue choosing slowly. Finding a marriage partner is a serious matter, don't choose randomly because of momentary anger. I know Charles somewhat and he did such things. I don't know Adrian, even less dare to let you marry him. Reject Adrian first, explain clearly to him the consequences of breaking the promise, I'll bear as Professor William. Adrian immediately stood straight like a pole. His eyes carried tension. The old man on the phone had good intentions, and he didn't know what to say to dispel the old man's doubts. Adrian is actually quite good. With a smile in my eyes, I softly comforted the other end. Did you forget? A few years ago, when discussing prosthetic technology for the disabled, I interacted with him. I know him quite well. The teacher still had heavy concerns. I'm just worried you're acting out of spite, stubbornly refusing to admit defeat. I coughed lightly. Actually, I really like Adrian's face and plan to date him first. The other end was stunned, then laughed and scolded. Little brat. The call ended. The teacher was in good condition, my mood was rarely good. As you see. I looked at Victor. My teacher loves me very much, he agrees to call off the engagement. A elder who truly loves me, how could he agree to push me into a fire pit? Charles suddenly walked over, his face full of frustration, eyes containing regret and expectation. Are we really impossible? I really know I was wrong, I'm sincerely apologizing to you. I was just bewitched by Lena. I interrupted his feigned sorrow. Charles, if I were just an ordinary person, the treatment I received earlier would become a lifelong nightmare. Adrian is a favored son at the same level as you, yet he's completely different from you. A few years ago, when I discussed cooperation with Adrian, after agreeing on the shares, he took me to see the clinical application of my prosthetic technology. I thought we would go to some high-end sanatorium. Unexpectedly, it was a simple but clean and tidy orphanage. The director was disabled, wearing prosthetics produced by my technology, walking toward us. The director's clothes were old, carrying cooking fumes. Yet Adrian hugged the director without hesitation. The children in this orphanage were mostly disabled. Teacher Selena, I really admire you, your technology will save more people. His eyes looking at me were full of light, I was moved. We talked happily, I thought I made a good friend, even praising him for being beautiful and kind-hearted during dinner. He lowered his eyes thoughtfully. As a result, that night, he came to my hotel room door with his clothes half removed, the tear mole under his eye shining seductively. I had a nosebleed and fled back to the lab overnight. Afterward, I avoided him whenever I saw him. Later, recalling this, I had some regret. I should have touched those 8-pack abs before leaving. Of course, these things aren't worth mentioning to outsiders. You know very well, our engagement is over, Fu Corporation will definitely fall behind Lu Corporation in the future. You apologize to me only because your interests are threatened, not because you truly feel sorry for me. So I don't accept your apology. Right, I've noted today's grudge. In the future, none of my patents will cooperate with Fu Corporation again. Regret finally appeared genuinely in Charles's eyes. I held Adrian's hand and walked to his car, the window slowly closed. Victor clutched his chest, gasping. He suddenly scanned around, looking at Lena sitting dazed on the ground, then at the security guards wishing to shrink into the corner, roaring furiously. You! And you all! You're all fired! Get out! And you! Go take some etiquette classes before coming to the company. Charles received his father's indiscriminate attack. But now, without his past arrogance, he lowered his head and silently agreed. In the last second before the window closed, I saw those security guards showing resentful expressions toward Lena. What price would she pay? Truly pitiful. I mourned for her for 2 seconds, without sympathy. A faint agarwood scent entered my nostrils. It was Adrian leaning over to fasten my seatbelt. The weather is still early today, how about we go on a date? Where? Amusement park? I looked over. Adrian, are you such an innocent person? Adrian said woodenly. Aren't I worried that too large a scale you can't accept? He suddenly gritted his teeth resentfully. I absolutely won't watch my pursuit fail again. I looked up at the car roof, dry-coughed, my face full of blush.